Hello and welcome to this episode of How Would You Run That? A Dungeons & Dragons podcast and ideas factory with me, Lucas Tomlinson.
And me, Jake Canner.
In this podcast, we'll be discussing some aspect of Dungeons & Dragons. An encounter, location, trap, puzzle, NPC, PC, god, magic item, or really anything that can exist in the world of Dungeons & Dragons. Importantly, we'll then be asking each other the question, how would you run that? At the end of each episode, one of us will reveal the topic for next week's episode to the other and ask, how would you run that? Giving us each a week to research, plan, and prepare how we would run said thing. This episode is on an underwater session. How would you run that?
This will immediately begin the idle banter section. I did tell you just before my big news of the week is that I've purchased myself a whiteboard. That's right.
So cool.
So cool. And it's just up there on the wall, and I'm writing all my stuff on it and getting my stuff done and crossing stuff out. Oh, the joy of the task. Yes.
So, thinking back to school, and your school's, your secondary school, I'm thinking of, it was had a bit of a better reputation than mine, say. I remember when our school changed from the blackboards to the whiteboards, and it was a big deal. Did you have the same sort of transition while you were at school, or did you have whiteboards ages ago? It was never a thing.
I've got to think it back. I think we had a few I think year 7 we still had some blackboards, and there were some classrooms that maintained the blackboards, but I don't remember the transition to whiteboards being such a pivotal moment for my education. I do remember the transition to smartboards in some rooms. They were
got one
wild.
of those in the IT room. That was a big thing. Yeah.
Yeah. Just the fact that they were constantly poorly calibrated, so every time you pick the pen up, it would just draw not where you've been writing. And yeah, some teachers were excellent at it and they took to it really well, and others, it was way more of a hindrance.
Yeah. But with the whiteboards and blackboards, I remember we had these massive old blackboards that were they were sort of offset from the wall because they were scrolling. So you could pull them down, they'd go around the back, and that's what we had. But rather than take those off and replace the whiteboards on the wall, the whiteboard just got stapled on the front of them. So we, and they were quite deep to start with, and they had a whiteboard on front, and it's they protruded into the room quite a bit.
So pants.
But yeah,
too much effort to take the old one off and repaint the space behind it, I guess.
Yeah, well, whatever. It's a decrepit old building. They've knocked most of it down now.
It's mostly
the rest
gone,
of it's a retirement home. Yeah. The bits that were too old, they weren't allowed to knock it down. They've converted into something else.
I wonder how many people that went to school there are now living there as retirees.
Oh, God. Oh, sorry, yeah, well, the school was open for a long time before. I was thinking...
Yeah, I don't mean from
my
your
mind
age.
went straight away to people my age, yeah.
How many people do you know have retired? None.
Jesus, that's the dream, right? I guess the sort of redeeming thought in all this is that, when we're multimillionaire podcast doers, which is a legit job title.
I think it's about 3 or 4 weeks away.
Yeah, I'm already planning t-shirts, so, people... I don't know if it's been done before, but people like t-shirts for things they like, so, our hordes and hordes of listeners are just going to buy all the t-shirts, and then we're going to retire.
I think we are exceptionally quotable.
Yes.
I just need a black t-shirt that says classic on it, and I'll know exactly where it's from.
So, long story short, this podcast is why I'm not contributing more to my pension.
Understood. I've got a secondary question that is ever so slightly related to that previous moment. It just popped into my head.
Go for it.
As a man of Dutch study, and as a man who has secreted himself into a Dutch world...
Weird way to put it, but yes.
Do the Dutch say pop your clogs as a euphemism for death?
I don't think so.
Because I suppose it also means just taking your shoes off at the end of the day.
I mean, clogs, it's not such a big thing. I say, I would legitimately Jake, I studied German and Dutch, and I've got a pair of lederhosen, and I love those things, they're great.
I mean, you are legitimately German, though. That seems like it's just something that they give you when you leave the country.
Well, I got the passport, and then they gave me that. It came in the mail a few weeks later, because they had to get sized and stuff. But, I would legitimately like an actual, genuine pair of clogs. Not the sort of touristy slippers you see, because I've had those and they're great, but legitimately, I would love a pair of actual wooden clogs. And supposedly, you wear them as house shoes, or maybe you wear them in the garden or something. Not a big deal. And whenever I bring this up, Charlotte, my partner, just thinks it's a terribly cringy idea because nobody in the Netherlands actually uses clogs.
I guess it's the equivalent of her saying, Lucas, I just really want to wear a bowler hat all the time.
That's true.
And the thing is, I kind of support that. My uncle did it. He's out teaching English in Japan. He's been out there for years, and he's really adopted the whole British gentleman thing. He's into like waistcoats and bowler hats and that sort of thing. To be honest, it really suits his vibe.
But I get that, if you're taking it abroad somewhere else, like me wearing clogs in England.
Yeah. It's a nod, isn't it?
Yeah. Whereas if I was wearing clogs in the Netherlands, I'd be like one of those neckbeards, like who talk about their waifu with their body cushion that you see on Reddit now and again. Like, it's like, why is no one in Japan like this? Yeah, that's the word I was looking for. You know what's really weird? The first thing that popped into my head as you said that. Have you heard of these what they call like the radio cults? I kind of forget where it is, or crate cults, or something similar to that. I can't forget the actual name, but it's basically I can't remember. I don't know if it was like islands in the Pacific or somewhere. Right. And when contact was first made with them by Western civilization, like some of these islands, they didn't understand like how a radio worked, but they basically started worshipping like radios because.
Okay.
And this is a real thing. I wish I knew more about it because everything I'm saying is so vague now. But like because they understood that these radios were a means of getting planes to come and drop crates of stuff, supplies, and whatever.
Right.
And it's just a really bad story because I can't tell you much more about it. But like I just remember a
cargo cult. I've just found the Wikipedia page.
That's it. Cargo cult.
It's a millenarian belief system, which adherents perform rituals which they believe will cause a more technologically advanced society to deliver goods. Much like, the Western world trying to... Well, these cults are first described in Melanesia in the wake of contact with Allied military forces in World War II. So, exactly as you say, they must have found some items that were like, cool, they've brought cool stuff from out there, and I guess you could do the same of trying to beacon down some aliens or something.
Yeah. But they would like pray to these radios and stuff because they knew they could bring the planes that had stuff and they would drop crates, but they didn't know how to operate them. And obviously, even if they did, if they just said, "Hey, bring us some stuff," if they spoke English, nobody would because they had no reason to do so.
I'm just reading a bit more. Yeah, these cults arose. They attempted to imitate the behaviors of the soldiers, thinking that this would cause the soldiers and their cargo to return. So they would do day-to-day activities. They'd dress like soldiers. They'd do like ground parade drills and get wooden rifles or salvage rifles. They're just like trying to imitate the behaviors of those that they've seen. Wow. I had no idea
how
about
I first came across this, but that's what popped in my head when you're talking about like countries lauding other countries.
Wow. Yeah, this is fascinating.
This is an interesting idea of how you could do that in Dungeons & Dragons even. Like, you would have a group of low challenge rating beings worshipping some really mundane item and trying to like replicate behaviors associated with that thing or the peoples that had that thing or and then the party stumbling across these like really bloody weird group of things. That's about the word things about 7 times that 3 sentences.
You get the opportunity to some crossover with like the Star Trek Prime Directive thing, don't you? Like is it the Prime Directive, the one where you don't mess with a society that's not ready for you? Yeah. It's not written down anywhere, I don't think. It's just like it's alluded to and given a few different forms. But yeah, the Prime Directive. It's the one that Data messes up when he goes nuts at the start of one of the films, isn't it? Right. I'm not super Star Trek versed, so I'm very limited there. Should we get into the meat?
Yeah, I feel like you got a question for me that we went totally off topic on, and I can't remember what it is, but yeah.
I think I asked you how you're doing, and we ended up talking about cargo cults in the Pacific in World War II, which seems like a rational response.
It doesn't even matter. So, Jake.
Yes.
An underwater session. How would you run that?
Cool. I'm going to preface this with the fact that I found this quite difficult. And firstly, DMs out there, this is okay. It's okay to struggle. The reason I struggle with this is because I hate underwater sessions, right?
Okay.
Well, I say underwater as if I've done so many of them. I think I do not personally get a buzz out of the seemingly arbitrary difficulties that being in an underwater environment presents. And that's kind of the whole point of them.
Are you saying that because you're looking at it from such a like practical, like physics-based approach? Like, how are you thinking about this in terms of difficulty? Because in your game, we've done a session where we did some underwater stuff, and that happened.
Yes.
I guess it was like part of a whole session, but yeah, what is it then that the difficult thing about planning this?
I think what it is because you're right, we did do an underwater session. I tried to make that as non-laborious for me as possible, and my my approach
For you.
for me, because I am a DM and I'm there to have fun. My party's there to have fun, but equally it's important that you enjoy what you're doing when you're making these sessions and when you're running them. So the fun goes both ways. My approach to this session that we'll talk about in a bit follows a similar vein in ways that I've found that I can extract the most enjoyment from it. But what my point is, let me take you back to the heady days of our youth. It's 1993, maybe 4 or 5. Not really sure. It's the early to mid-90s, and we are in your bedroom, and we're playing Sonic 2.
Okay.
And you get all the way through the thing, and you get to that... I think it's it's not the second level, it's the third zone after Chemical Plant Zone, the one we weren't allowed to finish. Mystic Garden or something like that. Anyway, It's the first one where you've got some bits of underwater and there's some peril there because Sonic can drown.
Apart from obviously all the purple stuff in Chemical Plant Zone.
Oh yeah, God, there was water in that as well. But that was like there were some other bits where you could traverse. But,
but that was the first one where there's like bigger sections underwater, definitely.
This is the water set, and you had to like go from air bubble to air bubble and the noise to make sure that someone could breathe, and then the most terrifying sound of all time when Sonic starts to drown. Absolutely,
it really was.
But my issue with that thing is that you felt the sense of helplessness because you're being thrust into this underwater level. You don't have a choice. And you go in the water, and all of a sudden, you can't breathe, you can't move as quickly, everything is just reduced. And I get it's to present a challenge, but it feels so arbitrary. It's like someone's just turned the physics to 50% because you were progressing too well. And I always hated it. And so many video games have done this.
I mean, in a video game, especially one of like that time.
Oh God, I know. It's so unfair.
That's exactly what it would be. They would just turn they just make those tweaks to make it feel like you're slower because of the water. Yeah,
and don't get me wrong, like it's absolutely right. That is a good way to add a bit of variance. But I think it was just so heavily played on that when it's almost meme worthy. The idea of the underwater level is going to be shit. Yeah. So when you put that prompt to me, my head immediately went to God. I hate underwater. For those reasons, because you've got looking, okay, so you look at it and you think, right, what's the whole point? What are the characteristics of the underwater area? What's the whole point of this biome? Why do you have it? And I've put down a few bullet points. It naturally challenges the core activity of adventuring. Insofar as it is hard to move, hard to see, doubly hard to breathe, it's hard to fight, it's hard to make things be on fire, which parties always like doing. It just hampers all the things you would normally do in D&D, and therefore it presents a challenge, which is good. But if people aren't into it and they don't embrace that moment of we're underwater now, then it can just feel like an arbitrary tax on their abilities. So it is down to players, and it is down to people that are willing to do it. But equally, it's down to me as a DM to want to do it or to put that in place.
Sure. So we're assuming then that, people are on board with playing, and like, I want to say basically, it's going to happen. For whatever reason, it needs to happen. We know this session is going to be underwater because that's where the story's led us to. Everyone's on board.
Yes.
But you want to make sure that it goes well, obviously, without just being the same as a normal session, but you move slower, you need to breathe, and you can't see anything.
Exactly my point. I don't want it to just be the same as traversing the fields, except you're now under the water and it just takes longer and is harder because you're underwater and you're a land-based critter who likes to breathe air in air form. That's the bit I want to avoid, and that's the thing I want to drill into. So that's where I start. Now, I will address the fact that mechanically this has been thought about by the lords and ladies of D&D. There are mechanics in the player's handbook at the end of chapter 9, page 198, that tell you how things like combat play out. So your melee characters being at disadvantage, any fire spells, you have like -2 to their dice rolls if they're involved, or they do half damage, and everyone's got resistance and other bits and pieces. Then the Dungeon Master Guide has got some rules and some aid for encounter building and movement and just general, the underwater is a place where you can be. So there is stuff in the book. It's not like you're on your own having to figure this out. That's fine. And that is good. But here endeth my dive into the rules. Basically, I'm here to talk about.
Fantastic.
Thank you. I'm here to talk about an underwater session, how I would run it, and how I would put it into a campaign, or how I'd put it into being without it feeling crap.
Lay it on me.
See, I've got the setup, the preparation, the task, and the payoff. They're my sort of 4 linchpins of DM prep.
Sure.
So let's start with the first one, the setup. Mm-hmm. We talked about a bit about mechanics and balance. They exist. Read into that in your own time. Totally cool. But the whole focus of doing an underwater session is to put your landlubbing adventurers at some sort of disadvantage. Basically, that is the inherent challenge that is posed. You're taking your abilities and reducing some of them. So, why would you do it? Why would you ever go under the surface? Why would you make life difficult for yourself? Well, you said the first one. You have a strong narrative. So you've got story beats that are taking you underwater for a reason. And everyone's so invested.
A lot of the source books, there's lots of underwater creatures and items, and there's stuff that you could build underwater things, and even the rules, like, it all exists. So, yeah, I mean, same reason as why would you go to the Nine Hells? The narrative tells you to.
Absolutely, yeah. And that's the thing. It's no reason to avoid it or to be particularly scared of it, because it is there, it is explained, it is accessible. You could have a side quest, a short adventure that's got a particularly strong pull. So I'm thinking nothing to do with your main story, or maybe it's a bit of downtime, or you hear of a magical item that only lives underwater, or you've been asked to go and milk a sea cow, or something like that. You've been sent by someone to go and do something that can only happen there, and in your mind, it's like, oh, it's a short, sharp, in and out. There's a reason to go. There's cool loot. There's a cool story. The DM has told us that's what we're doing this week. It's something like that,
Well, yeah. Like, even smaller than that. You could be in a regular Underdark or regular building or anything, and some of it is submerged.
Yeah. Yeah, of course you could. That's a really good way to do it. I got 2 more reasons why you might try and do some underwater stuff. You might have a PC, a player, who's got some cool water abilities. You might have like a water genasi that wants to show off they can breathe underwater, or someone that can polymorph their heads into fishes or something. Or they've got watery armor, or they have something that would allow them to excel down there by comparison, or against the backdrop of the rest of the party. It'd be cool to give them an opportunity to use some of that cool flavour.
Yeah, or a Triton.
That's my 4th one. You might have a party of Tritons, and everything's underwater.
A whole party of Tritons.
It's not very likely, but it is possible. You might just have everything underwater. So there.
I've never come across a single Triton ever in either playing or running games of Dungeons & Dragons. To have a whole party of them.
As you say, yeah, completely unlikely, but I thought I'd throw it in there as you might have an entire party of plumbers, and therefore everything is underwater.
I'm trying to imagine what the party of Tritons would be like. What's the chances? What is the chances that completely independently, the people you've asked to come into a game have all picked Tritons?
I mean, independently, no. This is a setup, isn't it?
Yeah, you would need to say, right, it's an underwater campaign. You've got a choice of Water Genasi, Triton, or Sea Elf.
Sea Elf or something,
yeah. Okay, but I'm taking it then in this episode, we're going with a regular land-based party, but for some reason they've got an underwater session for some reason.
Correct, yeah.
Cool. So, Jake, how are we going to get the land-based group of people to be underwater for an entire session when you can only breathe, so many minutes per your constitution modifier or something?
1 minute plus your constitution modifier in minutes.
Yeah.
Which is a long old time. I mean, I realise that your characters are usually heroes by the point they're even level 1, but that's an impressive amount of holding breath time.
That depends how much constitution you have, I guess. Maximum of +5, 6 minutes. I mean, yeah, that's pretty good.
I'm just saying, I can eat 3 jalapenos without breaking a sweat. Big deal. Super constitution. I can hold my breath for about a minute. I tried it in the bath earlier. So, yeah, I don't think it stacks.
A minute? I don't know if that's very good, is it?
I don't think it's very good.
Oh, I don't know. See, all I want to do now is hold my breath, but I don't think that's much.
Literally dead air for the podcast.
Yeah. Tune in next week and watch paint dry. Yeah? What mundane, boring things can we do without much narration that people will listen to?
Yeah, let's listen to paint dry. That's even better.
I did see. I didn't watch it, but I saw afterwards a guy on Twitch was streaming paint drying.
Of course he was.
And he got a ridiculous number of viewers just watching paint dry. And it was basically just like a let's chat thing, but it's funny.
Anyway, I'm getting back to the matter at hand. I'm drawing you back in. In order to keep this as an underwater session and not an underwater campaign, I want this to be more of the second item, more of like a short adventure with a strong pull, a little punchy side quest that comes out of the blue. Knowing the way my games run, it'll end up being 3 or 4 sessions, but the intent is that this could be like a one and done, probably 2, like a 6-hour thing, you know?
Yeah.
So here's my setup. Your party awakes. We're in the city of Faraway because that's where we live right now.
Ooh, we're in Faraway.
Yeah, they've made it to Faraway, cheese peddling, all that stuff's gone. They've been here for a while. Okay. They've set up shop. They're in one of the inns. They are known around town. The party's roughly like level 6 or so by now. So as far as tiered combat or anything goes, what I mean is they are known. They are like heroes of the realm. They are the big deal, kind of big deals. Exactly. Yeah. People of significance. That's the hook. They wake up, come downstairs for breakfast. At some point, there is an almighty crash from upstairs, and water starts dripping through the ceiling onto the table where they're all having breakfast. They go upstairs, and the stuff is everywhere. It's all wet through. In the middle of the room, I've got a note, and it's flapping like a dead fish, like a fish out of water. Like flap, 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 flap.
Okay. Is it shaped like a fish?
Sure. Why not? It's like one of those, Christmas crackers, like the magic fish film that tells you if you're happy or like on fire or something. It's one of them.
The one that basically just absorbs the heat from your hand and moves
accordingly. And curls up accordingly. That's the one, yeah.
Yeah.
I'm going to say that with this note, we read the note. You can't. You can't read it. The ink is all runny.
Great note.
Yeah, great note. So, how would you approach this note? I've put this note in the world. It's difficult to read. It's wet through. It looks like the ink is all run. What would you try and do?
I guess if anyone's got a mending spell, that's the first port of call.
That's a good idea. I hadn't thought of that.
To sort it out. Otherwise, I don't know. Would it be some sort of intelligence-based check to see if you can make it out despite the ink running?
That would be a good idea.
Have you decided beforehand whether it's completely legible or if it's is it going to be a skilled check like you do well and you make it out, you hold up to the light and sort of like you can see which direction it's ran, or is it a case of regardless if you do well or not, it's illegible?
I want it to be read, so I'm going to leave it completely out there, and a creative party, if they have a good enough idea or a good enough suggestion, that can be the solution. This is a wonderful little DM trick where you think, I've given you a problem. As soon as you think you found the solution, you have, provided it sounds cool enough. Now, I do have a mechanic. This is it's a magic note, because magic is cool. If you put it back in some water, the ink reforms and it's legible again.
Ah, okay.
Thus,
I like that
seeding more of the it's flopping around like a fish. It must be interesting or magic or something. If you cast detect magic on, you will detect the school of magic that I haven't researched that tells you it is able to be restored, or it's a magical note of some form. But you put it back in some water because a fish that is flopping around wants to be in water, and you can read it again, provided you can read Aquan, because fuck you, everyone.
That's not a language I've ever used. Who speaks Aquan?
Basically, sea elves. And tritons, and maybe water genasi if they feel like it. Water elementals will speak it.
Though, isn't it?
It is an exotic language. So immediately someone was like, I can see that this is a language, but I can't immediately decipher it. Cool.
And then the wizard casts comprehend languages after his cast mending, and it's done.
Of course they do, and it's done. That's fine. All it says is they've got something to do then. Like, their stuff has been ransacked. They've got no idea if it's all there. It's all wet through, and they've got a note. Through means indeterminate, they can find a translator, they can find a comprehend languages, they can find a library, they can ask, it doesn't matter, do what you like. They read it.
A ship hand, a dock guy, someone of the sea.
You look a bit wet. Or a scholar, exactly.
Yeah.
Any and all options, again, on the table, if they come up with a good enough idea, sure, that'll work. Of course it does. The note says, we've taken your MacGuffin, you've got 48 hours to retrieve it or it's gone forever.
Dun, dun, dun.
That's it. The MacGuffin has been stolen. Like, alas, I did not realise the MacGuffin was gone.
Okay.
So I've, in a very roundabout way, all of a sudden, someone's broken in and nicked your stuff.
Told you about it and wants you to come get it.
Yes.
That's an interesting ploy for stealing stuff.
Isn't it?
I've burgled you, and now I want you to grant me an audience on my turf.
In my mind, anyway, it's own. Party, you've got to figure out where the MacGuffin is, who took it, why, if they really want to. Now, in my head, I've already decided this. There are a bunch of teenage tritons who are just pranking surface dwellers of note.
Are you doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles?
No, but a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle. I hadn't thought of that. That's a great idea.
Just because you're saying they're teenage, I'm trying to pick up, because with the Sheriff Woodrow or whatever his name was. You were pretty coy. So I'm trying to untangle it now while we're going along.
Right.
Okay.
I don't think I've got quite as good a reveal for this one, I'm afraid.
It's fine. No pressure. Okay, so we've got Teenage Tritons anyway.
Yeah.
The Teen Tritons?
The Teen Tritons, yeah. Again, hadn't even seen that. I've written it down 4 times and I hadn't even seen that one. Lame in heck.
Well, that's what I'm imagining now. It's like they're Tritons, but, it's Robin, Raven, Starfire, and Beast Boy.
I mean, why not? That is now the case.
Cool. They've
got their own suits. Basically, what I'm trying to get at is that it isn't like an insidious enemy. This is just an inconvenience. So you're not necessarily going in, let's go and kill these Mother Hubbards who stole the thing. It's a case of, let's go and get the stuff back and teach them a lesson, maybe.
Does the letter reveal that they're the Teen Tritons?
It doesn't, but it could. Why not?
Okay. Oh, no, I just wonder what level of information the party get. It's like, we've got your thing. Come to this location.
It doesn't say come to this location. That's
okay.
the critical thing. What we're saying is we've got your stuff, you've got 48 hours to retrieve it. Done. Because in order to make this underwater session their idea, not my forcing them, I want them to say, or to figure out where it might be that this came from. So we've dangled the clues. We've got the fact that everything was wet. We've got the Aquan language. The magic note was like a fish. Mm-hmm. And lo and behold, you could ask around or check the map of Faraway. There's a massive lake to the east. It's huge.
Gotcha. So we're saying now Faraway canon, it's inland. There's no, coast.
Yes.
Cool. It's inland, but there's a massive lake.
There's a massive lake. It's about half the size of the city, and it's just outside the border to the east.
Wow. What's the lake called?
The lake is called Lakey Lake.
Lakey Lake. Sounds elvish.
No, it's called Ricky Lake.
Ricky Lake. Very good. Cool.
Anyway, I'm hoping then that this is the setup and can take as long or as little as you like. They have to figure out the note, they have to figure out a potential location. As a DM, you are free to give as much information as you like for their investigations as they do it. You might have a particularly sharp party or a sharp set of players who come up with a really convoluted reason as to why they can figure it out. Cool. I'd even go as far as to say if they think that it's in the nearby sea, maybe let it slide, let it go. So that's where I've put it. I put it in the lake. That is where the item is. They could figure it out. They could even ask around, and this wouldn't be the first time that it's happened. So if they were to ask around, it's like, the Teen Tritons have stolen stuff again because you got too big for your boots. Everyone heard you were coming to town, and they're here to try and bring you down a peg. They do this all the time, those little bastards.
It's for their own rep, so they're cool with the other Treens.
That's it. We've got a location and we've got a reason. Now we've got 2 bits of the puzzle to make a session go.
Mm-hmm.
You could have other reasons if you need to sweeten the pot. If that's not enough to make them go hunting for their MacGuffin, that's where I've written this note. The Teen Tritons do this all the time. Sometimes they go after people of note who have come into town, or they go after nobles or important people. As you say, it builds their rep, and it's just a bit of fun having a high-value target to wazz off.
Sure. Hooligan behaviour.
Yeah, hooligan behaviour targeted at those who they think are a cut above to try and elevate their own status. Cool stuff. Mm-hmm. A sensible motivation for a bunch of wayward teens, right?
Just causing trouble, bored. Yeah. They need a good under-lake youth centre,
People around, if you ask around and your party is still stuck around, or they need another reason to maybe follow the breadcrumbs you're dropping and leaving soggy, say that, they do this all the time. Sometimes people think it's not worth the hassle and they leave their stuff, whatever it is that's been nicked, think, sod it, it's not worth it. Sometimes they go and they fail, so they couldn't get the thing back within 48 hours, so it's lost to them. Sometimes they go and they don't come back. What I'm trying to get at is there's gold and then there are hills, except the hills are not hills, they're the opposite of hills.
There's not just the stuff you've lost, there's other people's unreclaimed stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, and also you'd be doing the town a service by going and sorting out these youths.
Exactly. Fun stuff.
It's an adventure.
It's an adventure. That is the seed. It's taken me about 20 minutes to explain the plot seed, but that is it. That is the adventure sown.
I get it.
So,
let's go.
I see step 2 as preparation.
Okay.
Because most things which breathe probably can't do so underwater.
Yep.
I realise that is probably immediately untrue because at least our planet is 70% water, and there's probably a lot more in there that breathes than there is not in there that breathes. But let's ignore that. Roll with me. Most things that breathe do so in air. I'm being incredibly speciesist, but roll with me.
Is this the podcast we're going to have to take down in 20 years' time because, like, perspectives have changed and people complain? It's like the old Disney cartoons.
Yeah.
That just aren't fit for the light of day anymore.
Okay, so we need to add another thing at the start of the podcast, that this was recorded in 2021, when at least the vast majority of sentient beings were land-based.
And I, for one, welcome our new underwater overlords.
I really hope when the octopi take over that they still listen to podcasts.
This is revenge for making us decide the outcome of the World Cup in 2006 or whenever it was.
Was that Paul? Paul the German octopus.
Yeah, Paul. Hammergeil.
We're in the preparation stage now. So they've got 48 hours. There's a time element to retrieving the MacGuffin. This is down to you, DMs out there. What is in the party's bag of holding that means something to them, or what item does your party member care about? Not so much that they're able to take it off at night and leave it in the bedroom, but so much that they want to go and get it back. That's on you. For me, they're after the MacGuffin.
Dun, dun, dun. We've stolen your thing that you now know that you have.
I forgot I had a block of incense and I must get it back immediately.
Yeah. Oh, like, it's just like the rubbish out of your starting equipment that nobody ever uses.
It's the equivalent of turning out your pockets and just like D&D pocket fluff.
Yeah. Oh, we're using encumbrance. Fine. I'm just going to drop this block and tackle, my inkwell, and this 50 foot of hemp rope.
I definitely won't need as an adventurer.
Anyway, level 6, level 7, they might have magic rope.
They might do, and equally, for the preparation phase, if they are around that sort of tier, they might have access to things like water-breathing spells and that sort of thing. So we're here in the preparation stage. This is going to eat into their 48 hours, and that is the point. Sure. I want it to be non-trivial to pursue the quest.
Would you let your party know that it's worth planning for this? If they just sort of upped and said, right, let's go to the lake, would you, like... I mean, is the whoever they get the information from, you know, the inland dockhand, or, you know, the scholar or whoever it is they're talking to, are they delivering exposition to the point of like, oh, if you're going to go, you're going to have to go underwater, so better prepare, consider these things? Or would you, like, just let the party sort of hope that they get there on their own, but if they don't prepare, just let them go unprepared?
I think if they were really gung-ho about it, I might let them go.
Okay.
And let them get there, because they've saved that time, the preparation time, in trying to do the something. Okay, fine, off you go, crack on. If they were inexperienced players, or humans, if they were, you know, children, or if they were stalling for time, unsure how to progress, I think I would give the highest wisdom character a nudge and say, you're going underwater, you might want to think how you might survive down there. And that sort of thing. So we're talking things like, how would you breathe? Yeah, potions or scrolls of water breathing. Maybe they've got access to polymorph and they could turn themselves into things that can breathe underwater. Or alter self, I think, allows you to take on some of the characteristics of a thing that you alter yourself into. You can give yourself gills and all that. Sure. If there's absolutely nothing and you just got a party of meathead barbarians or something who've got absolutely no capability in this, maybe there's an exotic jellyfish helmet that they can wear that, you know, that somebody knows about, and they could go to the library or to the pump rooms, or so, I don't know, some place that we are allowed to plan in advance where they could gain some knowledge. Or maybe there's a deep sea diving shack next to, or not deep sea, a deep lake diving shack. There's a tourist destination because people come to the city of Faraway to go diving in the cool lake, and so maybe you could rob out some fancy scuba gear, you know?
Okay, so we've got... There's a lot of options there, I guess.
Plenty of things to hit, but I'm just thinking that there should be a preparation phase, and it should be on the DM to make sure that that does eat into their time. This should not be... Unless they have access to the spells already and they know, oh, we've been underwater before, I'll just like bubble, 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 we're all fine. Okay, cool, then it is trivial. But otherwise, this should be like a morning's work if this is like, oh, how do we even breathe underwater? Like, you can't just find that out.
We talk a few times in this podcast about like having a safety net, you know, like giving the players the opportunity to sort of exhaust their own ideas before something, not completely arbitrary, but something comes in and it's like, this is the solution now because I need to help you get there.
Yeah, not a full Deus Ex, but like a...
Yeah, like, so I guess in this situation you're giving them the chance to think about how they could do stuff underwater. Because like the main problem we seem to talk about is how they're going to actually just breathe and survive underwater as part of the prep. But like I don't know what is going to be that sort of like catch-all if the party forgets about the wizard they spoke to who does discount spell scrolls, or they don't pick up on the hints that gillyweed grows in whatever area.
Exactly, yeah.
Like what's the catch at the end if you need to help them out?
I think I would do something like the scuba diving center, except in the Fantasy City of Faraway. So maybe there is some equipment, maybe some artificer has created quite an uncomfortable and inconvenient helmet, so there is a bit of a penalty for taking the easy way out.
Okay.
Unless, again, they are super inexperienced players, I'm not going to punish them for not knowing things, but if they're messing around, taking long old time, it's like, right, you can just do this will solve your problem, but your movement speed will be reduced even further because you're in a diving bell, or you're in like an old school diving suit.
Sure. I was going to ask, are we looking at like old school diving suits, or are we looking at like Jedi respirators? It sounds like you've decided for the former anyway.
I think if they asked, is there a scuba diving center, then maybe there is a respirator, because it was still their idea, but if they have to be served up the idea, then we're talking old school diving suits. Yeah,
they're just too late, this...
Or someone's got to stay behind, or you need to get an NPC to do pump the air down, There needs to be some drawback.
Sure, gotcha. Okay, but then we've got as far as like we've got to the lake. They've had the prep. They know how they're going to breathe underwater. They're all set to dive in or walk slowly in. I guess. Yeah.
Yeah, cool. Now the lake is big. The lake is like we said half the size of the city in diameter and very very deep at some points. So like the deep sea or the lake diving scuba center will take you not to the shallows, but you'll go down 100 feet or something. It's significant, but it's not like there's a massive marinara trench going on down here, and marinara trench, not a meatball. You know what I mean?
Maybe it is the marinara trench, in Ricky Lake.
It is now, and it's just Ricky Lake's marinara trench. Sentence I never wanted to say.
Anyway, so there's not a trench, you said.
Well, no, there is.
Okay,
this lake is big. It's deep. There's some real peril in here. There's some proper nasties if you go the wrong way.
Okay, cool.
So, the bit that I haven't planned out very well, due to I haven't thought about it very well, is how they would necessarily find where they're trying to get to. Because this seems like another thing where they might be asking lots of questions. So you jump in the water and immediately your movement speed is reduced, your visibility is reduced, your ability to fight things is reduced, although that hasn't come into play yet. Yeah. So you're in there and you're like, okay, well, what can I do? Now I can move in 3 dimensions. What can I see? How am I going to locate my object? They might have a really cool idea. I've got like the final backup idea, which again comes with a penalty if it has to be served up on a plate.
Yeah. If these Treen Titans are a bit of a dick, like people in the city, then surely they're going to be a bit of a dick to everyone in the water as well. And it only takes one person that they've slighted for your party to come across that will, dob them in.
That's a good idea. So other sentient folk in the...
Yeah, I mean, if this thing is, if it's so big, I mean, they're not going to be the only people down there, surely.
Well, yeah, you'd think. There should be an entire village of them somewhere.
At least a village, if not a city or more. But yeah. Okay. Yeah. So what's your catch-all then? Just to if they can't think of how they're going to navigate underwater and find whatever it is they're after.
I think the absolute final thing, if they had to be shoved, was that you swim around aimlessly for a couple of hours, and before you start suffering points of exhaustion, as the Dungeon Master's Guide tells you to do, one of you spots what looks like a light, a little lantern, and then as you look a little further, you can see faintly in the distance a second one, and a third. You think, oh, it's a trail of lights. Let's follow the trail of lights. Bazinga! It's a pair of dire anglerfish. They're here to fight you. So
nice.
Yeah, there's something to fight, and at the end of that, it's much easier to resolve. There was a commotion, so somebody comes across, or you're down on the ground level, and you do spot a trail. You spot the entrance to the cavern where it's all going down.
Okay, gotcha.
It's a little bit easier to. Okay, we've now done something. You fought something. You've realised how difficult it was. At the end of it, your reward for not dying is continuation.
Information on where the Tritons are.
Yeah, and it's either the door is right there now because you battled your way across, or you find someone who knows what's going on, or you spot a sign that they've placed down there, which is just like a crudely drawn picture of a Triton sticking his middle fingers up at you or something.
Well,
yeah.
Do the Teen Tritons live in a giant T under the sea?
Giant T.
Yeah. It's like the classic Titans Tower.
Yeah.
Okay, so who would you envisage then would be, if, say after this combat, someone's rocking up to see what the commotion is. Who is that person?
That person, well, I think it could well be another Triton. So they have a racial bit of backstory where they're like, usually in the sea, but they're kind of custodians of the place. They like to keep on top of things. So a commotion would surely attract the attention of a patrol or so-and-so. You do have the opportunity for a social encounter in doing that because the Triton are not a race, but probably a race that certainly our party will be familiar with. So they may have customs or ways of talking, or a hierarchical system of you don't talk to them, but you talk to them because they're the boss and that sort of thing. So there might be some social faux pas to be tripped across. So nothing that would end up getting you killed necessarily, unless you've got an absolute arsehole of a party member who's just antagonizing them unnecessarily. But it would certainly be like you'd come away from the conversation thinking, like, I don't know if that went well. Okay. We do have the information we wanted, but I don't know if we made any friends in this moment.
Okay, so I'm picturing then, as the sort of like have a little bit of a conversation with this person, every now and again he turns, like the main guy turns to the rest of his group and makes some sort of like hand signal or like, like nods and twitches something. Yeah. And like, one leaves and you don't tell them what that means,
Yeah, roll insight. 20, you know nothing.
Yeah, it's obviously he's communicating something, but the exact purpose or anything, they're expressionless as they do it or something.
Yeah, and you still don't speak Aquan.
Well, this is why I said it's like hand signals and stuff, because it's not actually a spoken language, and there's no, like, that's a code then. It's not a language they can actually understand. So if they have any magical means, or if they understand Aquan, so one of their exotic languages, there's still no way of knowing.
Nice. Good save, good catch.
It's like a constant game of cat and mouse. It's like, how can I outthink a group of 5 people in a scenario that I'm going to put them in?
Yes. And you've got to let them succeed, of course, sometimes. Sometimes you've got to let them get away with it. Like, remember we had our session and there were a couple of air elementals guarding a bridge. And this is my fault. I had not read the character sheets of everyone in the party. But, we have lives to live. And so I didn't realise that one of the players had Auran, the air elemental language, as one of their exotic languages. Being an Aarakocra, fine, cool, you live in the things, you talk of the air, you are basically a wind avatar or something. Sure, of course you can speak that language. And in that moment, I was like, well, I've got to give it to you. You can go and have a conversation with them. And it wasn't necessarily going to be a combat, but it could have been a combat, and it would have been particularly challenging, given the fact it's the classic rope bridge, you across the chasm, and you've got some things in the way that might try and stop you. But even with a relatively low charisma score, he was able to talk his way through it because he just spoke the same language, and it was very reasonable. Can we cross, please? Yeah, of course you can. Thanks for asking. And I had other things. There was like a fruit nearby that meant if you ate the fruit, it would make you go a little bit crazy for a while, but you would also be able to comprehend their language, and you just think you were tripping balls. But there were other things in play that would have been an option. But the fact is, like, oh yeah, I speak Auran. Like, okay, cool. That has negated the moment. But equally, you have your character has succeeded in the moment. Congratulations on winning the day. Your
choice has had some significance.
Yeah, and you've outsmarted me. Cool. That's part of the fun, isn't it?
I've outsmarted you by hiding it deep within my character sheet.
Yeah, on the left-hand side where nobody looks.
But anyway, in this scenario, though, we're just having this interaction with Triton person who lets you know where the group of teens is.
Yeah, let's say they've just explained the scenario. They've gone, oh, no, not the teen Tritons. They'll be hanging out in their clubhouse over there, and they point to like a shipwreck that's hanging precariously over a precipice or something.
Mm-hmm. Sure. Okay, so and he's done the whole like sending people off with hand signals, and you're not really sure how that went. And I guess when he signs off, like he doesn't really say goodbye or anything. It's just like, this is ended, and just buggers off. That is all.
I have spoken.
Yeah. Cool. So now we've got a shipwreck teetering over the edge of the Marinara Trench.
Yeah. It could be that. It could be an underwater dungeon. What I want to get to is the MacGuffin is in a building of sorts. It's not just sitting on the seabed or the lake bed. It is in at least a room, possibly in a few rooms. Yeah?
Okay.
I think it'd still be cool if it was an underwater dungeon. There's maybe some puzzles to do, and then it's not that complicated to go and retrieve the thing. The complication was figuring out where it is, getting yourself ready to go and do it, possibly encountering something on the way down. And what I will say, there are random encounter tables for underwater events in the Dungeon Master's Guide.
Okay, so you're going to pull that out if they're dawdling or...
If they're dawdling, yeah. I've had a couple of thoughts of other things that they could do on the way in or the way out. You're still underwater. There's still general peril.
Lay it on me.
Okay, you got your random encounters on the page 116. I've already just mentioned that the dungeon itself could be that shipwreck that's hanging on the edge of the precipice. So there's an idea of a little bit of peril, that if they upset the balance, it might go tumbling into the Marinara Trench and crush all their meatballs. That would be awful.
Well, don't do an earthquake spell, But I think that's nice. The sort of shipwreck on the edge, because you can see that straight away, because it's almost a trope, isn't it? Of an underwater scene. Underwater things being a trope in themselves, like we talked about earlier. Do it. That's the clubhouse. It's a shipwreck.
Let's do it. All right, we're in. There could be a kelp field, so they're swimming around aimlessly underwater, and there's a field of kelp, and it's a convenient place to hide from the big shark that appears to be swimming overhead. But what else is hiding in the kelp?
Ooh, out of the frying pan.
Yep. Cool. Coral's always fun. Coral's super sharp. Coral can be poisonous when it is sharp, and you can encounter coral for a reason. Maybe you get blown into it by a current, or maybe there's just a coral golem hanging out down there that you've woken from their slumber, and now there's something quite difficult to fight.
So you're reflavouring a stone golem and adding a d6 of poison damage to their attack or something?
Basically that. I might turn it into slashing damage. Exactly, yeah.
We're on the same page.
Super easy stuff. Then I was having a bit of a Google around of general underwater hazards, not necessarily in a D&D context, just stuff that I maybe hadn't thought of because I haven't been scuba diving. And people on the internet were saying silt. Silt's a pain in the arse. If you get an updraft or you disturb the surface and you fill the water around you with particles of just the top layer of sediment, it can be very disorientating, because it's not like you have to move it out of the way. It's not like you can blow it away. It's just everywhere. So it's just bam, instant. Where is up? Which way is everywhere?
Okay, so I'm just thinking now, in terms of practice. Say we're in that encounter. How are we managing the third dimension of movement? I mean, I guess you can fly and stuff otherwise, but are we just? Because I guess if you had an area of silt, you just say 20 feet radius, draw it out, and it's also 10 foot high or something. You've just got an extra dimension of stuff to have to consider. But I guess you just draw it on and say that's what it is, and then, it works.
This is one of those things where I might do a massive lie, or just cover up myself. So in the case of doing a combat, and the coral golem is going to be walking on the floor, isn't it? Yeah. Let's say they're walking on a floor of coral. There is no silt. I don't want the silt necessarily. I mean, it could be, but I don't think I've planned that out to be a extra hazard in the combat scenario. I was thinking this could be something that happens. Maybe they've been dawdling for a while, and you make someone roll a general survival check or a nature check or some sort of how are you getting on trying to find this place, and it goes badly, or we roll a random encounter and I put it on my table. A sudden updraft or a sudden current whips up some silt around you, and you completely lose track of where you are, which direction you were heading in. Lose X hours of time, because there is still this time limit. There's the 48 hours ticking in the background, and there are exhaustion mechanics for extended periods of swimming.
Gotcha. Right, so that's what it is. It's all just time wasting on this 48 hours thing.
Yeah. So I think when you're playing D&D, if you really want to take all the fun out of it, it's a game of accountancy, isn't it? And you are basically, you as the DM are trying to sap the resources that the players have, and they are trying to conserve enough of their resources to overcome your hurdles until you complete the session. They go back to bed.
That makes it sound so boring.
I mean, it is. You're destroying everything with numbers when it comes down to it. So this is just another tool in the arsenal of sapping a resource, in this case, their time for the quest, and also giving them a level of exhaustion, which comes with its other disadvantages. Gotcha. Just to make the rest of their day harder. And to make that completely random might seem a little unfair, but that would be something that I'd bring out if they were really dragging the session out.
Okay. How much time in your mind will they need once they find... What are the Teen Tritons doing after 48 hours? What is going to happen to the MacGuffin?
Nobody knows.
But you know, surely.
Oh yeah, absolutely, definitely. I totally know. Definitely thought about that. No,
Are they just going to cast it into the Marinara Trench or something?
I think basically, yeah, they just get rid of it or chuck it or whatever. The intent for this is that it's not a difficult thing to retrieve once they know what they're doing.
Yes, but what is the threat? Like, if they're saying, come get us, and in 48 hours or else, like, firstly, what's the or else? And secondly, what's going to happen if they get there within the 48 hours? Is it a case of like, oh yeah, you came, here you go?
Well, basically, yeah. So the or else is, or you ain't getting it back.
Because...
yeah, good question. I don't know. Let's think about that now. So they could take it to another location. They could take it to the elemental plane of water where they all actually live, but they just happen to come here to the material plane to cause trouble.
They just sell it on?
They could, yeah, if they had reasons to do so. They could chuck it in the trench, but that seems counterintuitive to the idea of stealing other people's stuff as well.
Yeah, and getting some of the loot from the party. So what if then, like, these guys, they're petty thieves. If people aren't, tough enough or brave enough to come and get the stuff back, then, basically finders keepers. Like, 48 hours is, like, a noble amount of time, because Triton's supposed to be, like, underwater good guys, aren't they? Like, fighting off all the whatever we don't even hear about under the sea. So 40 hours, like, that's a fair amount of time, then you can have it back. If you want to come get it, come get it. If you don't, it's ours to do with what we want, be it, sell it on, keep it, whatever.
Yes. That's sort of where I've gone, but in terms of actually... if they decided we're going to keep it and your party are there because it's now hour 49 and they've just turned up and they've gone, unlucky, you've run out of time, and they go, unlucky, fireball or thunderbolt or whatever.
You have to fight us for it.
Yeah, that seems quite harsh to fight a bunch of adolescents, but, it's D&D. Do what you want.
I mean, that's not the worst thing. Like,
at least they've made it to adolescents. You've not just gone in to kill all the younglings.
It's like, oh, you rolled a 1. Well, whatever spell hits the orphanage.
Oh, that's the noble goal in the background. They're all children of the orphanage and they're stealing things to keep it alive, keep it going.
Okay.
But, okay, that's just waffle that we're not going to deal with right now. That's something else if we want to dig any further.
Sure.
Right now, we've nicked your thing. It's here. Come get it. 48 hours. If you don't, it's ours. Eat a bag of dicks.
Them's the terms.
Them's the terms.
That's the rule of the sea lake.
Yeah.
Let's say then, party navigates all the dangers of the massive lake, Ricky Lake, and they get there within 48 hours.
Yes.
What happens when they arrive?
Okay. So they go into the shipwreck clubhouse. There are some rudimentary puzzles to solve to maybe unlock a door, or there's a locked door to what would have been the captain's old quarters or something, and there are it's almost like escape room level of challenge. They've got to like puzzle out the key or whatever, or figure it out. Cool, fine, do it, don't do it. Up to them how they get into the room, get into the space. This isn't meant to be difficult.
Okay, have you thought about what the puzzle might be?
No.
Okay, just any puzzle that you think is going to be the right level of challenge for your party. The challenge being low level.
Reasonably low, because firstly it's set by adolescents who think they know what they're doing, who think they're being clever, but it's not supposed to present a particular hazard. It might burn the final half hour or the final hour, or this could be entirely party dependent, and I know I say that a lot to get out of doing some planning, but there are lots of cool different puzzles, and I wouldn't necessarily choose one until I knew who I was planning it for. But I'd want it to be probably work out the clue or work out the answer from a series of clues, because then it's not so much, like I've said this before, it's not a challenge of the character sheets as much as a challenge of the players. Because you've challenged the character sheets by getting them through the water. You've managed to get them to the point where you've tested the character. Now, let's completely switch focus, get the grey matter of the players going just for a final thing. Huzzah, you've unlocked the room, you've opened the door, you're in.
Sure. I mean, I've got in my mind, like, I've got a few suggestions of what that could be, but I guess... Well, let's give one then. Let's give one if you're thinking of how you could have a puzzle. Basically, there's one in might even be in Tasha's Cauldron and everything. I'm not sure, but it's a key puzzle, and like it's a key box puzzle. But you could have this same puzzle and apply it to a door if you wanted to. It's basically, say in the door there are 4 keyholes, and next to the door is 4 keys, and let's say they're attached on chains so they don't go far away.
Yeah.
The keyholes have like words next to them, and those words are either monsters or animals or something from the area that have a certain number of letters. So the first one might be eel for 3, rock for 4. Like whatever. Basically, like the holes have different number of letters in the word. So 3, 4, 5, 6 for the 4 holes.
Okay.
The keys have a number of teeth on each of them. So it's 3, 4, 5, 6. So basically, you have to use the right number of teeth on the key for the hole with the number of letters that matches.
Cool. That's a good idea.
Yeah, but obviously you don't know that until it's the answer. So you see a series of words and you see a series of keys. And then if they do a wisdom check, they realise that the keys look different, or like you could even provide them. Like if you drew out really simple looking keys, you could provide your party with like, here are the 4 keys, and then read off the 4 words for the keyholes.
That's the sort of thing I'd like to do with a handout, because it takes it takes it away from the abstract.
Yeah.
There's no opportunity for someone to miss the clue.
So they've got through the door.
They've done
the puzzle.
Yes.
What's in the clubhouse?
In the clubhouse, this is more than just the club, but this is like the room of the captain's quarters. The place has been quiet so far. There's nothing that they can see going on.
Because the shipwreck is perfectly intact otherwise. There's no other way in apart from this door.
This isn't the way into the shipwreck. There's a hole they can get in any way they want. This is when they're in the hole and they're going like, oh, this is where the captain's quarters would have been.
Or,
this is the door to the hold or something. That's the one that's locked.
Yep.
So they're relatively safe from the outside world. It's quiet. They solve the puzzle. They open the door. There, on the table or on a pedestal with a shiny light on it, is the MacGuffin. Ta-da! You're like, cool. So,
no Tritons?
Seemingly not.
Okay, so the party goes in, they pick up the MacGuffin.
Okay. Also in this room will be a series of other parties' MacGuffins of times gone by.
Ah, cool. So it's a loot room, so they take all the other stuff
It's a
too.
loot room. Oh no, they take the other stuff. That wasn't in the terms.
Ah, okay.
Now they've crossed the line. Now they've gone against the rules of engagement, and now they have angered the Teen Tritons.
Who are watching from the window, or?
Exactly, they're watching from the window and from the little portholes and little spy holes. And what they now start doing is the door slams behind you, and all the water is evacuated from the room you're in. You're now in a room full of air.
Great, that's good.
That is good, except now you can't open the door because the door is a push door and the water pressure from the outside is holding it closed. You can't escape from this place. They think they've trapped you here.
The pressure against like the windows and everything they're looking in, that's not sufficient to break it in.
Shut your face. No.
No, it's not. No. There's some magic afoot.
Yeah, I think when I originally planned this, it was still in a cavern rather than a ship.
Ah, okay, sorry.
So it was a door to a more cavern, and more the same sort of idea applies. But this, with a little bit of thought, this could be corrected or fixed.
Well, if the water has been magically evacuated, then it's going to be magically remain full of air. It's not the water's evacuated; they've magically put air in.
Yeah, they have access to a pump or something. What I was trying to get at is that
we can use magic to put air. Yeah, a pump.
Pumps are basically magic if you don't know how they work. The point of this is that if you go and get your thing and leave, job done. Mission complete. Go back for tea and medals. If you steal other shit, then that's the point where you've crossed the line, and these are Tritons. They're here to uphold the good and the stuff, and basically they're just after an opportunity to be dicks.
Cool.
They are not directly going to try and fight you because they don't want to be combatants. They have access to like Home Alone level traps or something that's just going to antagonize you. They're not trying to kill you, they're just trying to trap you, prevent you from escaping such that you may drown or can never escape, and that will teach you.
Okay, are we talking like blow darts and, I don't know, something like animated armor or like a flying sword or something?
It could be absolutely anything like that. Now, I don't think it ought to be anything that's particularly devious. When I say like Home Alone level traps, that's the sort of thing I am thinking. Like those Home Alone traps, firstly, could definitely have killed the wet bandits.
Oh yeah, those guys should have died multiple times.
Yeah.
Brick to the face.
We're not talking not dangerous stuff, but we are talking, there's a hole in the ceiling and it was covered with wood before, and now a carpet's pulled away and crates fall down on your barbarian, or crates fall down and crush somebody. And
okay, so now we climb out through the hole.
Yeah, if you like.
Oh, right,
I'm not saying it's going to be difficult to escape.
Okay.
I'm just saying that the fact that they have been inconvenienced further while still underwater is the negative in this moment.
Gotcha. Okay.
And so, yeah, they I mean, if they are in the clubhouse and it's just made of wood, then you are no longer disadvantaged because you're no longer in water. You could beat the ever-loving shit out of the wall until it eventually breaks. You can get out, but it's going to cost you energy, time. Are you going to try and... Okay, now you've punched a hole in the wall and the water starts rushing in. That's all the water pressure of 100 and so feet, maybe more, worth of water. That's going to punch a hole in your chest if you're not careful, but you're an adventurer. You're okay. You can handle this. It's going to push you to the other end of the room and you're going to take some bludgeoning damage as that jet spurts into you.
Okay.
So just silly things.
Okay, so basically, they're in the room, things like that happening just to damage them further so they lose health.
Yes.
Okay. What do you want to happen in this situation now, then? You want the party to get out and go home?
That is a legitimate option.
They've got the stuff. They're being, messed around by these Triton kids who are chucking bricks at them. Who they're never going to catch if they try to chase them, unless they've got... Well, maybe if they've got some magical means, but, these guys can swim away. How committed are they to keeping hold of their stuff? Are they telling the party they want, put our stuff back?
No.
No, so they're just throwing bricks and whatever, and the party just has the opportunity to, kill some teenagers or go home.
I mean, basically, yeah. At that point, that becomes an interesting moral question for your party to decide: are we going to try and track these little miscreants down and give them what for, or we got what we came for, plus some extra magic, cool stuff. Let's bounce. One thing I should have said that I would like to have happened is when they start taking other stuff and all bets are off, some sort of magic dispelling as well, I think would be a cool thing to do.
That's a game changer.
It is, because especially if they've gone in with magical means to breathe, which they almost definitely have, unless they've got the scuba gear, in which case, no effect. Lol, the scuba gear comes in clutch, finally. It's taken us 25 hours to get here, waddling across the seabed, but we can just walk out again. So, okay, magic has been dispelled, so your breathing means has been removed from you, and then, okay, that would actually put an additional pressure on, wouldn't it? You now have 100 foot of water plus to ascend. You need
How are you going to get out of there?
Not get the bends while you do it. You don't want to go too fast, but...
Yeah, so what is the party supposed to do? I mean, if they have the spell, they might not even have spell slots, you can't assume that they're going to be able to use the same means of having, be able to breathe underwater, what got them down there. So what are they going to do?
What are they going to do? They are going to have to... I think I would provide a couple of things that they could do. You could chance it. You could fight to get... Yeah, you could swim. You could equalise the pressure. You could get water back in the room, get the door open, hold your breath and go for it. Some people will pass out on the way, probably. There is a real opportunity for some bad shit to happen.
Yeah, that doesn't sound too great.
No, but certainly doable. I think, let's take your average, say, 2 minutes worth of breathing. 1 plus a con. Let's say they've got, 12 cons, so you've got a little modifier there.
I mean, you really should be playing a character that's a negative con modifier.
No.
That's asking for trouble.
Unlucky wizards, you can't breathe. But yeah, 2 minutes to travel 100 feet through water. That is quite an ask.
Yeah. But, it's Dungeons & Dragons. Big asks just mean big rolls.
Yeah. Through sheer force of will, you go
I can do almost anything.
But then what could you do? I'd hope that people would come up with it in their own moments, but here's what I would do if I was playing in that moment. So I'm in a room that's full of air, and it's now filling with water, and I know that we're planning to swim. The room is full of loot. I would be looking for bowls, chamber pots, something that I could use to fashion an air helmet, exactly.
Okay, so when you describe the room when they first get in, you see what's in there and you put a few, vases or, like you said,
vases
pots,
would work.
Fancy looking stuff. You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? How I'm going to say this as well. When you're back in town planning and they're looking for someone to tell them about it, whoever it is they're talking to mentions in passing that they stole from them. It's like a silver chamber pot. That my Kraton, whoever gave to me.
I really wish you'd bring it back. Oh, by the way, it's a chamber pot for a giant.
Yeah.
Or a cauldron, or any. That's the one.
Oh, a cauldron, that works easy. Pot. Yeah. like so you drop in one of those items beforehand, so that like when they see it in the room, it's like, oh, and there's the thing. I guess that incentivizes them to take something else as well to make this happen. If they liked that character and want to return their cauldron. But, okay.
Options on the table. There are other things that could happen, yeah, if you've got spell slots left, or if you could do the water breathing spell, or whatever means they had to have their water breathing ability. If it's, gillyweed, they might still have some. I thought, well, let's get some spare. And okay, fine. The Dispel magic hasn't just like EMP'd everything hereafter. It's just like a one shot. Anything that's in play, bam, Dispel.
Yep.
Do it again. What else could you do? You could hide some magical items in there. There could be some boots of water walking or something. It would be hard to identify in the moment, but you think that room's got time to fill with water. It's going to take some time to do that. Maybe, I don't know, 11 or 12 minutes to fully fill up before it's a real problem of time for someone to ritual identify if they really, really wanted to. I think I put some things in there, some discoverable things.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense. I just want to understand, like, when you're building that room, just off the off chance, like, if they haven't got any other means that you know about for them to be able to breathe in the water, what you're sort of giving them as a way of getting out of that situation, rather than leaving it entirely up to chance. And you all wake up unconscious on the surface as a fisherman prods you, like everyone passed out or something.
I mean, that could be the ultimate fate. If it all goes completely tits up and everyone starts going into the drowning condition, maybe the Teen Tritons think that's far enough, and you do wake up on the beach. And with another note written in aqua that you need to put under the water, written in fish.
Oh, no, sorry, I meant that the letter was a fish shape again.
Oh, right. The letter was written in fish.
They've just like laid fish out. Like you lay sticks out for SOS on a beach. They just laid fish out. Dear the party.
To whom it may concern. This is taking so many fish.
Well, let's look at it this one. Maybe you don't make it easy for them to get out, and you have it as a thing where that really is an option, that they might just all become unconscious. You know? As long as
wake up with a note.
As long as it happens to all of them at the same time, and you don't have like rounds of death saves first, you just have all of them wake up on the beach, and do they have their MacGuffin back?
No. If they've gone to the point where they've wazzed off the Tritons, they don't have their MacGuffin back, but they do escape with their lives and a note that says "Don't be greedy," and that's it. Okay,
so what's to stop them trying again?
Because you broke the walls down, all filled with water, the ship has sunk into the Marinara Trench, Ricky Lake, and never to be seen again. So sure, it's down there, but you certainly can't survive the pressures. So unlucky.
I like that. So like an extra level of sort of drama is as they're trying, because they've got to break out somehow. Like if the door's not moving, or like they've got to force something or break the wall or something. Yeah, as sort of the initial order's going on, like describing how the ship is sort of like creaking and moving slightly, and then at whatever point it is during the that they actually like it's not going to fall off until they're out. But once they're all out, then they see it sort of fall into the sea and that into the trench, and that's what deters them from just doing the same thing again.
That's the thing. There's no going back at that point. The only way is up.
Yeah,
with whatever you've managed to grab, and that is an option. Like if people had grabbed a bunch of stuff and made it to the surface, then cool, you've made it out with some cool stuff. Mm-hmm. That is an outcome. Another outcome is you don't make it out with cool stuff. You escape barely with your lives, and a note telling you not to be a greedy bugger.
Cool, but nothing else, I guess. No other penalty or anything.
No.
Okay, gotcha.
Maybe a lingering fear of the water. So all in all, that is my session. That's definitely going to be 3 or 4 sessions.
That sounds like a lot. Yeah.
A quest seed. Which could be as quick or as unquick as you like. I think it needs to be meaty enough that they will be sucked in, but it depends entirely on your party.
MacGuffin of significance plus potential additional retrieve the silver chamber pot.
Yeah, cool stuff. Then we've got a bit of time for prep, which could take a long time, could not take a long time. They are on a fixed amount of time, so they need to be economical with it.
Yep.
Then there's get to the place, and then there's get out of the place. They are the 4 phases of the session.
Yeah, sounds good.
The little mini adventure. Inserting the final key, the lock expels a bubble of air and falls to the floor. Inside, a litany of treasures adorn the various surfaces of the old captain's quarters. In the centre of the desk, pride of place, lies Clive's soft felt thinking cap. A single shaft of light breaks through the decrepit hull, further highlighting the prize. Before anyone could reach out to take the hat, there's a sudden pop, and all the water in the room vanishes, replaced with air, and dispelling the scroll of water breathing cast before. The party fall to the ground as the noise of a shifting mountain of treasure briefly deafens them all.
Greedy halfling, you take that which is not yours. This room shall be your tomb.
Everyone turns to look at Snips, who shrugs, holding a grossly bejeweled goblet. Rushing for the door, they'll find it held fast by the immense water pressure.
I'll handle this,
Shouts Crunk, falling into a familiar rage. Drawing his warpick, he starts slamming into the door. There's an almighty snap as the door gives way and splinters, dashing Crunk with sharp wooden shards as a giant shaft of water punches the barbarian across the room, knocking the wind out of him. The room quickly begins to fill with cold water as the party scrabble for some means of breathing. Vestel murmurs an incantation as she desperately tries to channel the arcane force to breathe underwater. To no avail. She's exhausted her abilities for the day. In a final moment of hope, she upturns a vase and a chamber pot in an attempt to trap some air for the now perilous swim to the surface. With the room now once again full of water, the party try to escape. Strings of kelp, silty water, and the struggle for air all impede their progress. Crunk, raging, is the last to fall unconscious as he drags the bodies of his friends to the surface. The prickle of sun on skin. The sensation of sharp pebbles pressing into your back. A cough and a splutter. Looking around, it seems the whole party have made it to the shore. Another note flops like a fish on the rocks. Wise now to its trick, Vestel is able to focus enough to comprehend the bizarre language as she holds the note under the water's surface.
Greed shall be punished, but not with your lives. And then it says, Teen Tritons go. Children.
Right. I should tell you what next week's prompt is.
Please do.
Okay. The intervention of the gods. How would you run that?
The intervention of the gods.
Yeah. Interpret that any way you like.
I have a few ideas. I'm going to have to do some reading on which gods want to do what.
Yeah.
Choose
anyone you like.
I've got an idea straight away. But anyway,
oh, cool.
I'm gonna plan it out a bit more than the 10 seconds of thought I've just put into it, and I'll let you know next week.
Nice. All right.
Cool.
Thanks again for joining us for another episode of our D&D podcast, How Would You Run That? Please give a like or subscribe wherever it is you get your podcasts. In particular, it'd be great if you could leave us some comments on iTunes and voice notes on the Anchor platform, anchor.fm. Spread the word, and we'll speak to you again next week.
Thanks everyone, catch you later.